18th. Madam Clerk, let's start with a roll call.
Here.
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 Here. I know she's here. Her jacket, she's just not present at the moment.
Here.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Dare, you are our newest member. Would you lead us today?
Would you join us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Dare. Item number 3, public comment. I have no cards. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will close that. Item number 4, approval of the agenda. Is there anyone wishing to take anything out of order, change something, remove, add?
Move to approve.
Just kidding, Mr. Pawnee. Have a motion and have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Approval of the minutes for December 21st, 2016. Any changes? Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item number 6. Mr. Hauk, welcome, sir. You know, and I before you start, I think everyone owes a huge debt of thanks to Mr. Hauk. He was up taking care of Tumwa business while his personal home was being flooded and trapping his wife. And I am terribly sorry for your loss, sir. I'm
Thanks.
sorry.
It was just the garage, so and the crawl space.
Yeah, just the
Which I
garage.
have to believe has happened before. Right now, we're just dealing with access, so, but thank you.
I don't know about in your neighborhood, but garages in my neighborhood are not free.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
again, thank you so much
Thank you.
for concerning yourself first with Tumwa. That's just very noble. Thank you.
Thank
Mr. Hauk, thank you. Water supply.
So, good morning, board members. The region is experiencing one of the best starts to any water year in recent memory. And you can see what we had been staring at the last 5 years, a lot of red and orange, that's been all erased, and according to the U.S. Drought Monitor. Precip since October 1 is well in excess of 200% of average in both the Truckee and the Tahoe basins. And you can see in the Tahoe Basin right now, precip for the water year is about 230% of average and about 216% of average in the Truckee River Basin. And this can also be seen in the snow water equivalent, which is the amount of water in the snowpack, which is about double for this time of year. So as of this morning, our water supply situation is in really good shape. And the game changer can clearly be seen in this NRCS time series snowpack summary for the Truckee River Basin. You can see that over the period, the 6 days last week, Friday through Wednesday, water equivalent or the amount of water in the snowpack jumped more than 15 inches basin wide and brought us way above the curve for this time of year. In fact, at our rain gauge at Donner Lake, we recorded over 13 inches of precip over that 6-day period. And water content in the snowpack at the Mount Rose snow site went from 16 inches to over 40 inches of water. So clearly there's a lot of water being stored up there right now in the snowpack.
Mr. Hauk, do you know in terms of prior years, that level of actual precipitation, not snowfall, but actual water, how do we rank? And I'm not talking about being 200% of normal.
Mm-hmm.
Have we ever seen that amount of precip?
Yeah, I believe we have. In this graph, you can see the red line is the mean where we should be this time of year. We have come into the new year at 200% of average. I can tell you that. We've definitely been there before and seen it the taps just shut off. But this doesn't feel like one of those years.
I'm just talking about the amount of precip that we got. I mean, it was,
Yeah,
I would term it
January,
as
from what I
catastrophic.
understand, has been, I think, one of the top 5 months, from what I understand.
in recorded
It's
history.
In recorded history, yeah. It's been a pretty big month of January so far. And interestingly enough, at the end of December, snowpack levels were starting to fall off a little bit because we hadn't gotten the precip that we had hoped. But the big shot in the arm last week with those 6 days of rain and snow really brought us up well over the curve.
Not sure whether it was in the arm.
So this was a big shot in the arm to storage levels at Lake Tahoe, as you can imagine, and I know you've read the paper and heard it on the news. But Tahoe's risen just about 1.4 feet just since the first of the month, which is really amazing, and over 2 feet since the beginning of the water year, October 1st. So, and actually, on the same day last year, we're about 3 feet higher than we were the same day last year.
And I know
So,
when it goes up like 2 inches, it's like 400 billion gallons of water. Is that
yeah, I don't know about gallons, but acre feet, yeah, certainly, it's a lot of water. It's about 10,000 acre feet per inch, so.
Per inch.
Per inch, yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, and the runoff forecast shown here, the hydrograph for Lake Tahoe shows Lake Tahoe gaining another 2 feet by the end of June. And this hydrology, which was fed into this run, was prior to last week's event. So with the new hydrology, which we don't have run through the model yet, the projection for Lake Tahoe is about almost another half a foot, which puts Lake Tahoe by the end of June somewhere around 6227.2. Which is basically 4.2 feet above the natural rim.
Right.
It's a pretty good position to be in, and this is the best guess. This is the most likely projection at this point. We could get more, maybe a little less, but as we stand here in the middle of January, that's the best projection right now. So about four plus feet of storage in Lake Tahoe.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Full is 6,229.1. Full?
That's full, yeah.
Correct.
So roughly 2 feet, from full, a little bit
Yeah.
less than that. So,
Amazing.
but still, significant improvement from what we've been dealing with the last 5 years. And in fact, based on the hydrology, all reservoirs in the system are going to not only fill but spill this year, including Stampede. So that's be a big plus to boaters and recreation enthusiasts this year. So that we haven't had that since 2011.
Wow.
So.
Amazing.
Yeah, and according to most likely NRCS projections, we're going to have about 180% runoff year in the Truckee River Basin, significantly above average runoff, as you can see in this hydrograph for the Truckee River at Fairhead. And basically what that means is we're going to have normal Truckee River flows for this year and all of 2018 at the very least. So we are really in a good position as far as runoff goes.
So when you say Farad flows, it's 400 CFS in the wintertime and 500 CFS minimum flows in the summertime.
Correct.
Fairhead.
Those are the required flows
Correct.
at the state line.
Okay.
And with some things going on with TRO, we'll probably see a little bit more than that from some of the things the other parties are doing. But
Yeah, but those are just the minimum flows, and so
They are.
we're able to keep up those minimum flows.
they are.
That's
So we'll have enough storage in Lake Tahoe and Boca to provide the minimum flows for the rest of this year and through next
18.
year.
Yeah.
And I can say that with a certain level of confidence. And you could see that in this hydrograph here showing the last 7 years where we've been, you could see that when Lake Tahoe was just above 6227 elevation, even during some of the forest dry years on record, we still had over 2 years of storage left, even if we just had minimal, bare bones hydrology, bare bones snowpack over that period. So at this point, and the projections are showing, we have at least 2 years of full river supplies based on the projections for Lake Tahoe. Unfortunately, though, as most of us who've lived here long enough have experienced, this recovery came with some flooding to the region. It is a proven way to dramatically improve our water supply outlook in a very short period of time. But we did, as everyone knows, go through some flooding last week. And the Truckee River at the California-Nevada state line, the peak flow there was about 9,000 cubic feet per second, which combined with local inflow helped to push discharge or peak flow at the Reno gauge over 13,000 cubic feet per second as the river rose more than 7.5 feet in that section. Now, this was a big event. Clearly, there was some flooding, but it was only about 83% of the size of the peak discharge we saw at the Reno gauge in '05, and about 75% of the peak discharge we saw in '97. And you can see that in the scatter plot, there were 7 years in the last, out of the last 110, which we have had bigger discharge at the Reno gauge recorded. So, and this event, just real quickly, has about a 12-year recurrence interval. So we could expect an event like this pretty regularly, once every 12, 13 years. So as big as it was, it's still not all that uncommon for this region. And the second wave of the flood we saw last week was the Truckee River Fairhead. We didn't see as much water coming in from California, but what we saw based on that event was a lot of local contributions, stormwater contributions, which created flooding, and you could see that pretty clearly here on the Steamboat Creek at Steamboat Gauge, which got up just about as high as it ever did in recorded history.
Really?
And just to summarize, definitely one of the best starts we've seen in recent memory. Precipitation since October 1 is well in excess of 200% of average. Snowpack's close to double this time of year. Lake Tahoe is currently 1.68 feet above natural outlet elevation. It's risen more than 2 feet since the start of the water year. Preliminary runoff forecasts are showing well above average stream flow for this year. That means Tahoe projected rise to about 6227.2, about 4.2 feet above the natural rim. All of the reservoirs on the system will not only fill but spill this year. Normal flows projected for the remainder of this year and through 2018 based on the amount of storage in Tahoe. And Tumwa still has more drought reserves than ever currently on hand, despite using some in September and the first week of October last year. And according to the Weather Service, there is another series of storms going to be hitting us the next 5 days, which will only improve this outlook. And then looks like a little dry period. We'll catch our breath there for a little while, but after that, all bets are off. But that's my outlook.
Okay. One other thing that I'd like to thank you for was during the event, you continued to feed information, even though you were also up at Donner, trying to, what was it, clear the spillway of debris?
Yeah, we had a significant amount of debris clog the outlet gates. The lake rose over 4 feet in a 24-hour period and brought with it a tremendous amount of woody debris, which clogged the outlet gates. So we couldn't get it out manually. We ended up having to get it out with some machinery.
No, again, I appreciate your efforts there, and I also appreciate the feedback and I was giving all of that information. I was passing it through to the managers, and it was just very, very useful information of how much capacity we actually had in the reservoirs, which really saved our cookies in this particular issue in this,
there was
event.
a significant amount of excess capacity,
Yes.
space this time around compared to '97.
Yes,
Sure.
yeah, that was a call it a godsend. I know it wasn't easy to deal with the drought, but call it a godsend, because if we didn't have that capacity, that water would have been coming down the Truckee
doubt.
River,
No doubt.
as it did in '97.
Did.
So, any questions for Mr. Houck? Okay? Thank you so much, sir. Item number 7, presentation on the State of Nevada's Integrated Source Water Protection Program. Mr. Forey, would you introduce this? Mr. Enlow, I beg your pardon, sir.
For the record, John Enlow. We have a couple guests from NDEP here this morning, Kim Borgziner and Birgit Henson, who are going to talk about NDEP's Integrated Source Water Protection Program and an update to the watershed management plan for the area. I'll just let them do their presentation, but what we're looking for is your approval of staff's participation in their planning efforts. Thank you.
Okay. Ladies, welcome. Please introduce yourselves.
Good morning. I'm Kim Borgziner with the State of Nevada Division of Environmental Protection, Bureau of Water Pollution Control. Actually, I'm in Safe Drinking Water now. I just got moved, so. I've been managing what was called the Wellhead Protection Program for the state as a staff engineer for the last almost 10 years. So my involvement with this has led us from providing small grants to public water systems to develop a wellhead protection plan to creating an overhaul of the program so that we're now looking at countywide jurisdictional approaches to investing the grant funds that we have to ensure that all public water systems are included under a plan. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on the program itself and how we're moving forward with protecting drinking water supplies throughout the state of Nevada. The plan is a voluntary plan. It's not mandated for local communities to have this plan in place. It's a mandated state program, so we have to have the program at the state level, but the state has decided that we want to keep it voluntary at the local level. And what that does is it helps us to really help local communities create a plan that works for them, because if it's mandated, then we have to set a bunch of criteria on a broad-based state level, and it creates situations where when you're working in Nye County versus Clark County versus Washoe County, those issues are not the same in those three different communities. So by keeping it voluntary, we have more flexibility in allowing the communities to develop plans that really fit their local needs rather than a statewide criteria for those plans. But so in Washoe County, we have, I'm sure, a lot of people are surprised to find out that there's 91 regulated public water systems in Washoe County. We tend to look at Tumwa as the big water purveyor, but there are water systems that are regulated at the state that are mobile home parks, that are homeowners associations, that are small bars and taverns and grills that have their own water system that serve a part of the population, a transient part of the population that come in to get serviced in those facilities. And all of those they all have wells in the same aquifer that you have your wells, and they all need to be protected at the same level. But they're not administratively in the business of water like we are here. And so they don't have the resources, they don't have the know-how, they don't really know much about water. So we decided to take a regional approach to protecting the aquifers and the groundwater supplies and say, okay, we're gonna come to the larger water purveyors, we're gonna come to the bigger agencies and say, let's do a plan that includes modeling these other small water systems, bring them on board, and really take it to the planning level, not just the individual public water system level, so that we can get some real work done with implementing these plans. And the largest portion of our success has been, I've been afforded through having a third-party contractor come in and assist us with this, really spending a few months up front in stakeholder development. That's been the key to accomplishing a countywide plan, to really get all the stakeholders together and make sure everybody's involved. I can hire a consultant to come in and do a planning effort like this for a community, but without the direct involvement of the key players in that community, it just becomes a plan that sits on the shelf, and we don't really have the opportunity to move it forward and provide more additional grant funding to really do some projects and implement the plans. So stakeholder development is a huge part of this, and the reason I'm here with you today is because we decided that the only way to get real good buy-off in these communities is to make sure that we're creating a transparency behind this planning effort. What is this planning effort? What is it not? How does it impact the community? Who are the players involved? How do we get staff dedicated? We don't get staff dedicated unless we have their boards approving this portion of the planning effort and really saying that they need their staff to be involved. So our plan to get stakeholders involved has been kind of a bottom-up. We approach staff, talk to them about how the boards would receive this type of a program, and then come to the boards and have the boards approve it at the upper level so that they can direct staff and afford time to participate in the planning effort. So stakeholder development is been a 3 to 6 month process in a lot of our communities, and it provides an education up front in what we're trying to accomplish, and it really gets buy-off from the different decision makers to ensure successful implementation of these plans as they move forward. So just a real snapshot of these are the communities. Douglas County was our pilot community that we started in. Every single community has, I can say every county commission and city council that we've approached has unanimously approved this planning effort. It's kind of a, hate to say it, no-brainer. We're bringing in 100% funding for this program, technical assistance provider, and we're here to protect drinking water supplies, to really take a look at what's going on in these areas that are sensitive to drinking water wells in your community and what's going on in those areas, and try to help the community come with creative solutions and different ways of implementing protective activities to protect those sources. So you can see we just finished Humboldt County in 2016. We're moving into implementation with them. They have some projects they want to work on, and we are ready to go in Washoe County. And I just wanted, this is just a real quick slide to, water is really on the forefront of especially after the flood. We've got a lot of water quantity. I mean, it was so great to see that Tahoe is, rising. Our water quantity is looking good right now, but we don't want to put water quality on the back burner. And we have the One Truckee River Management Plan that you've recently seen at the different meetings. Birgit and I both participated in that, and it was a great lead-in for what we're trying to accomplish. Implementing this type of a program is actually one of the activities outlined in that plan. Birgit will talk more about watershed management planning because she's up right after me. And with the update of the comprehensive regional water management plan, and this being a direct implementation measure of that, it just everything seems to be falling in line with the momentum of water planning right now. So it seems to be a good time to come in and do this here. And that's my presentation. I wanted to keep it quick and give Birgit an opportunity to talk about how her program and my program will be leveraging to accomplish this on a more comprehensive level here. So.
Okay, hold on just a second. Any questions for Mr. Borgsener at this time? Okay.
Nope.
Ms. Henson.
Good morning. I need to put this down. I'm significantly shorter than Ms. Borgsinger, as you can see. Good morning, board members and Mr. Vice Chair. I am Birgit Henson. I am the non-point source branch supervisor at the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. And if you're not familiar with that term, and I'm sure you are because you're all water folks, but non-point source is anything that's not related to coming out of a pipe or coming out of your wastewater treatment facilities in the Truckee River watershed. Would you mind switching the slide? Sorry. Okay. So as Kim explained, it looks like we're at this amazing nexus of planning efforts in the Truckee River watershed and Washoe County. She had to remind me, I am a watershed-based scientist looking at planning at that level, and she had to remind me that Washoe County goes quite a bit up, much further than that. I said, oh, right. So of course, the source water protection planning includes all of Washoe County. What I'm speaking to is more specifically the Truckee River watershed itself. As you may be aware, my program actually provides pass-through funding from the Environmental Protection Agency to mitigate and prevent non-point source pollution. Now, non-point source pollution is everything that we see coming off from urban slobber, from your streets, from your agricultural lands, which we actually are lucky to have some in this area that are still near the urban interface, as well as your upland Forest Service lands, dirt roads, etc. All of those pollutants that are moving across the landscape into your tributaries and into the main stem of the Truckee River. And as, of course, you are also aware, much of the Truckee River water is the water supply for the population here. So this is quite important for the area, and I think is relevant to TUMWA's mission and needs. So we actually provide pass-through funding to implement projects to mitigate and prevent this pollution. But also, we work closely with communities to do the planning to do so. And you may have heard that the City of Reno now has $70,000 to look at a gap analysis for the update of the watershed management plan that includes the MS4 communities, City of Sparks, City of Reno, Washoe County, to update their watershed management plan. And I want to make it clear that we're talking about the same thing here. We're working very closely with with your organizations and those organizations to do this planning effort. And we can provide, through the state, additional funding to make sure that that happens. You've already heard this, but why now? Like I said, I think we're at a very unique nexus in time. There seems to be this amazing convergence of different planning efforts, including what we haven't really mentioned yet, is that EPA at a national level is encouraging Clean Water Act and Safe Drinking Water Act components to coordinate more and figure out how we can get source water as well as non-point source and other issues coordinated. And so Ms. Borgsinger and I are actually looking to Washoe County and the Truckee River watershed as kind of a unique start to do that in the state of Nevada as a pilot to coordinate these programs. So thank you for entertaining that thought.
It's not uncommon that Washoe County is a leader.
I am aware. I'm aware. Yes, absolutely. So the nexus, of course, you've heard this. These are all very similar planning efforts. There may be one component in source water that's not considered a non-point source. However, it's all under the auspices of the One Truckee River Management Plan as well as action items. And so we are starting to implement some of these planning items that were called out and approved in that plan as well. So what are the benefits, other than obviously improved water quality of your major drinking water source, improved quality of life, improved recreation down at the river because your water quality is better? Well, having an approved watershed management plan for the watershed then makes you eligible to compete for a larger pool of funding in the state of Nevada that you're not eligible for if you do not have a watershed management plan that has the minimum 9 elements approved by EPA. And just to demonstrate, this was our last year. We had about $800,000 available to Carson, Tahoe, and the Las Vegas Wash watersheds because they have approved plans, and about $200,000 for the rest of Nevada. That's not a lot of money for the rest of Nevada to go around, so I'd love to see the Truckee River watershed to have access to a greater amount of funding. And finally, I'm really looking forward to working with all of the different entities, and I want to make it very clear, even though this is an EPA program that does have the required minimum elements, this is a locally driven, stakeholder-approved plan. And through the Source Water Protection program in Nevada, Ms. Borgsinger has been very gracious to allow us to start watershed management planning with some of her third-party contractors to start that stakeholder development process to move forward with the watershed management plan update as well. And so with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Henson. Do we have questions? All right, we'll start right here. Ms. Dewar.
Yeah, thank you so much. Both of you did a great presentation. Really informative, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just a question about one of your last points, which was you would love to see the Truckee River watershed have more money, but how do we get there? I mean, what is your thought on that?
How do you get there? How you get there is we work to develop the stakeholders.
Yeah.
We start looking at the gap analysis that the city of Reno just was approved to do.
Right.
We figure out what else we need to meet those minimum 9 elements. Those stakeholders work together to fill in the gaps, develop the watershed management plan. Then we have it looked at by EPA, and I can tell you it's a checklist. It's kind of a present absent. Get their approval, then you're done.
So bottom line, you're saying we need the approved plan in order to qualify for the additional funding?
That is
what you're
correct.
saying?
Yes.
And then, so is there something holding us up from getting the plan? I guess I'm getting right to the heart of it here. Is it we just don't have enough depth of people to work with you, or what's the issue, do you think? Or we just haven't started?
It just hasn't happened yet.
This morning.
Yeah,
It hasn't happened yet.
I know, but I understand that. But what I'm saying is, it hasn't happened. But
Sure.
now we're on our path?
Yes, we are definitely on the path, and so we're just asking for approval to have staff participate so that we're sure to make all of the stakeholders have their voices heard
Yeah.
and involved in that plan.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dare.
So once it's approved, obviously you come up with the plan, you work with some of our stakeholders and that. Who enforces? How do we obviously have a plan, and so is that a funding issue that's going to end up coming where we have to make sure certain things in place? And then is that part of what you help us fund, or do we use existing employees? How does that?
I'm not sure I understand your question, but let me address what you said in the beginning about enforcing. This is a completely voluntary program. Even after you receive approval from EPA, there are no regulatory hammers associated. So let's say you put in your plan that you have 20 projects and you have a timeline. You're not quite meeting that because there's a flood or an economic downturn. There are no hammers that come down. It's completely voluntary.
So it's just a good target. We're just trying to create a really nice target for everyone to go after, and the state wants to give us money for that.
That's correct.
That sounds fantastic.
Win-win.
Ms. Jordan?
Thank you very much. Did I hear you correct and you used terminology of urban slobber?
I did use that terminology.
Okay, I wasn't sure if my ears,
Would you, urban slobber basically refers to what's coming off of your urban residential driveways or your commercial properties, a lot of it having to do with dry weather flows. In other words, people really want their really, really green yards, even though we live in the desert, and so they overwater and they overfertilize, and that all ends up in storm drains, and we know, of course, that that all ends up in our tributaries in the Truckee River. So it's kind of urban slobber.
Duly noted. Duly noted.
Drooling, urban drool.
Precisely. Any other questions? Ms. Borgziner, Ms. Henson, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it, and we look forward to a successful outcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this item? Okay, good. Item number 8, presentation on proposed bills for the 2017 legislative session. Do we need possible action? Do we need action on this?
Please, I was just asking for your approval. There was a letter attached to your board packet that authorizes staff to participate in this planning effort. Thank you.
Okay, all right, so I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion by Smith, second by Dare. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Forgive the overstep. Item number 8, I'm trying to get out so that I can go to the medical examiner's grand opening. A little eerie, but that's where we're headed. Presentation on proposed bills. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. John Zimmerman, for the record, Water Resources Manager. I have a few introductory comments, and then I'll turn the podium over to Steve Walker to discuss a few of the bills that we're monitoring. So last week, TUMWA staff presented our recommendation on the bills we're tracking to the legislative subcommittee of this board. With one exception, all of our recommendations were approved. I think the one exception was with AB 72, dealt with the Uniform Plumbing Code. Staff initially had a watch oppose recommendation, and based on comments from the subcommittee, we changed that to watch. And so the list you have in your packet has that change in it, and staff is okay with that change, so we don't have any further comment on our recommendations. It's important to note, we're also tracking bill draft requests right now, but because the actual bill language is not out, we can't offer a reasonable recommendation for those. We'll track them, and as the bill language comes out, we'll update the legislative subcommittee and also update this board as quickly as we can. The only other remaining item, so I guess in closing, before Steve presents on the actual bills, we would like the board to give us direction on the list you have in your packet on whether to accept the recommendations from the legislative subcommittee. And then number 2, we'd also like the board to identify someone on the board who can be our contact person for Mr. Walker and Mr. Ponyi as they're lobbying at the legislature. And so those are the 2 items we'd request your action on. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Walker.
Okay, so on that, Mr. Pani, are we styled today to choose a member that will go down to the legislature? Did I hear that correctly?
I don't know that the agenda is really set up that you could appoint someone specifically to the board to have some kind of representative capacity.
Okay.
The legislative subcommittee could easily do that at its next meeting if the board wanted to defer to them.
As an agenda item?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. Yeah, Ms. Breckus.
So I'll just explain to the others, because I was the subcommittee member, excuse me, who raised concerns about that AB 72. As I recall that bill, and please correct me if I get the narrative, I've only read the BDR, I presume Mr. Zimmerman's read the bill, but I approached it from Reno's perspective related to state legislation is we prefer not to be preempted in issues of local concern, local authority, the roles and services we provide. So this was a bill, as I recall, that somehow when we all adopt our plumbing code, which is, we all know within the building codes, and we all have building officials that, adopts the code, and we actually have a very nice local process in place where we have a standing committee that works on code issues and code revisions, and we all more or less time when we adopt our codes, but we all adopt different building codes. Evidently, there's a process or a rule or regulation, a statute, that when we adopt those codes, we have to go up to the State Board of Public Works for approval, sign-off, blessing, something like that. And to me, and the bill would remove that step. So the bill is actually removing some state oversight upon us on an issue that we have, true autonomy in it, which is the buildings, building and development. And so from my perspective, that's great. I think we have a good local process. This is an issue of local concern. Sometimes, and I'm not truly knowledgeable on scenarios, but I've heard over the years bits and pieces about, well, the State Board of Public Works, sometimes friction between our building departments and them in terms of the approvals that they have over state buildings that then hook up, oh, by the way, to our city water, and we provide response in too. So I thought that was interesting that they're also our overseer on how we adopt our codes. So from my perspective, and I have not circled back to our building official, I think this is a good bill. But I could see that staff was thinking, wow, we really want to make sure there's a uniform code from all three jurisdictions because we're the provider of utilities to all three jurisdictions. And I could see that perspective and maybe go that way if I saw that we weren't all pretty much aligned and had a good process for adopting our plumbing codes. We work with our private sector colleagues on this adoption of the codes, and I do think that at some points there is, my understanding of codes is there are allowances for one jurisdiction to adopt, some kind of deviations, mostly for experimental purposes, into different codes. New technologies come on. I've always used the issue of straw bales and alternative building materials. It's not a plumbing code issue, but anyway, so, and sometimes you'll see those dropped into code. So I just thought that this was a good bill, get state government out of our business in a place I didn't think it needed to be. So that's why and we'll see how it goes, and I just wanted to also share my comments so that if others are interested in this bill, they can circle back to their building officials too.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Mr. Walker, welcome.
Good morning, Board and Chairman. For the record, my name is Steve Walker. I'm the contract lobbyist for Truckee Meadows Water Authority. Truckee Meadows Water Authority, obviously, our focus in legislature is water related, but you're also a local government, and so we also make sure that all the bills that deal with local government issues, human resources, purchasing, publications, are also part of what we monitor in the legislature. What you have in front of you is that the outcome of our subcommittee meeting last Friday. And it basically goes through the bills that we are watching and makes some comment to them. I would like to basically start with going through most of the water-related bills. It's unique this time in that we do have these bills at this point in the legislative process. All government agencies, state and NACO's, Leagues of Cities, are required to submit BDRs in August and have their bill drafts released in November. So this is really the first time we've had this type of number of bills that we could review. Also, because they come from government agencies, a lot of them are germane to what we do, And so of the batch of bills that came out, about 170, we're monitoring quite a few. There'll be another bill dump just prior to the legislative session, and we'd expect about another 200 bills to come out right at that time. And so at your next meeting, we will have looked at those. Subcommittee will have made recommendations, and we'll make presentations. And it'll get probably more interesting as we move along. The first bill I'd like to talk about on the, and if any of these bills that you see on here, if you have any questions, I do have information on each one of the bills, or if I don't, then I'll ask Michael to address it, and we have reviewed it. The first one is on the second page. It's AB 79. It says provisions relating to economic development. Reason we're watching it and why it's a water right bill, it actually is a bill that conveys the operation of the utilities in the Apex Industrial Park in Southern Nevada to North Las Vegas Utility District. When this bill was, and this law was created, it was created during the special session where it was on the Faraday tax giveaway, no, wrong term. Tax abatement. And at that time, Southern Nevada Water Authority was designated as the utility operator in that basin. It was based on the fact that they had acquired the water rights in the Garnett Hydrographic Basin and also the adjacent Coyote Springs basins. But they're not so much a utility operator, so this bill basically corrects the utility operation to North Las Vegas. SB 21 abolishes the Nye County Water District. That's all it does. So there's really nothing going on with that.
Ms. Tour.
Mr. Walker, on the one with the Faraday, I mean, so what's the point of that bill then
Pardon me, I didn't hear you.
What's the point of the bill on the Faraday then? I mean, I watched that whole process, but
Yeah.
What's the bill actually do?
What the bill actually do is it's AB 79,
Right.
and it transfers.
I mean, is it the implementation arm of what the legislature did when they had the special session, or
The
more
bill
detail?
specifically, the bill specifically takes the district and the Southern Nevada Water Authority out of the legislation that was passed during the AB.
Oh, they're taking it out.
Yeah, so they're not referred to, and it takes Southern Nevada Water Authority out. It does keep reference in to the Las Vegas Valley Water District, and that's basically what it does.
Okay, all right.
It is quite simple.
Yeah.
Going through water bills, the first one I will distress is SB 51. It is, its title basically tells you nothing. It is really Humboldt River specific. It is notification in the papers and also notification to water right holders of adjudication processes on surface water. And basically it cleans up language on surface water adjudication that attempt was made last session in SB 81 to clarify and simplify the process. It also does the focus on vested water rights and proofs for vested water rights. Vested water rights are water that was people have made claim to prior to Nevada water law, and that would be in the surface water, that would be in the 1908s, and groundwater in the 1930s. And so a vested water right, you claim you have this water until it goes through a court adjudication process. It really is water that cannot be transferred or purchased or sold. It can be, but it has its value. So the state's trying to get a handle on that resource. Particularly in rural counties, there is many vested water rights, and until they go through an adjudication process and you put a volume to the right, you don't know how much water you have. And so that's going to be an emphasis. Humboldt River's got issues that are one of the main issues of water legislation this year, and that is that the effect of groundwater pumping on surface water flows, claiming that the groundwater pumping and mine dewatering is hurting flows to the terminus of the Humboldt River at Lovelock and Rye Patch Dam. That's also occurring in other basins, not so much in the Truckee River Basin. The next bill referred to is SB 47. What this bill does is changes basin, when you're going to do an interbasin transfer of water, that the either 25%, you have to do a resource evaluation. Applicant has to do a resource evaluation, typically a groundwater model, to show the effect of the transfer, unless it is 25% or less of the perennial yield or 1,000 acre feet. It changes a number that was much smaller than that to 250. It also clarifies the time extension, basically tries to address the issue that permits are extended and extended and extended, and there is some language in there to try to basically, once your 5 years of your permit is over, if you haven't done the permit requirements, that the permit will be revoked, and it tries to tighten up extension process. It also expands a domestic well revocable permit to other areas outside of where they originated in Clark County. And this is basically if you are going to put a property that you're developing on domestic wells and it fits the planning criteria, the acreage, that in the future when, if in fact and is planned, utility extension goes into that area, then you can get domestic wells, but they'll be on a revocable permit, meaning once that the utility reaches a certain distance from your property, it's 185 feet right now, that you would be required to hook up. And it's, don't know how far it'll go. SB 73, another provisions relating to water. One of the issues that the legislature and the state engineer, by the way, this is all state engineers' bills, are trying to address is the fact that we have 278 hydrographic basins in Nevada, and almost all of them have more permits for water that exceeds the perennial yield, but most of them don't pump or the perennial yield. We're getting into situations now, though, where pumping the perennial yield and excess of the perennial yield is causing major problems, problems of groundwater levels dropping over 100 feet, for example, in Diamond Valley. In those cases, there is new law that's been developed called critical management area designation, and a hydrographic basin can be, say, you're a critical management designation if you meet these overpump criteria. With that, and this is going to be occurring more and more throughout the state, in these situations, you would be required to develop a groundwater management plan. The groundwater management plan would have to address the overpumping, it would have to reduce pumping. You have 10 years to do it, or the state engineer will do curtailment. Curtailment would basically shut down all water pumping down to the perennial yield based on a priority system, how old your water right is. This bill also addresses in a curtailment situation that domestic wells in that hydrographic area will not be completely shut off. Under existing law, if you had to go to a curtailment in a hydrographic basin, the domestic wells, which would typically be drilled later than the large agricultural wells, would be shut off. He's required to shut the water off. This bill allows for a half-acre foot of water per domestic well to remain, and so you don't take the water supply. It also includes the other issue that was discussed extensively during the intermediate session and intersession of conjunctive use. And there is a statement in this bill that says that we address, or we basically applaud and want to encourage conjunctive use. Conjunctive use is basically coordinating the use of the surface water and groundwater supply to best manage the water resource. The SB 74 is during the interim, the governor had developed the governor's drought task force. I think probably people made presentations to it, and several recommendations came out of that. Basically, this bill, from one of the recommendations, is to create an advisory committee on water planning and drought to make recommendations to the Division of Water Resources. It would require enhanced conservation planning from utilities. All utilities in the state are required to submit a conservation plan, I think on a 5-year basis. This would add other components, including inverted rate structure, metering of all your wells, and in some other enhanced components. I won't affect Tumwa or usually other large utilities because their conservation plans already contain those components. It also, if you want to put a rain barrel out by your house and catch rainwater, you can do that and you won't be violating Nevada water law. It also recognizes that the wildlife guzzlers, the development, are actually now legal, so it clarifies that.
Mr. Walker, I'm going to ask you to pause for just a moment. Board members, I'm going to leave and go to, we have a groundbreaking across the street at the medical examiner's office. Sadly, it's at 11, and so I need to get upstairs and drop my stuff off. At the boards, and I've talked to Mr. Pawnee about this, and I'll turn the gavel over, but if you want to go through the process of electing a temporary chair, you can. Ms. Jardin, I'll turn the gavel over to you, and I will beg forgiveness and hope that they don't give me an honorary toe tag.
Thank you very much. Before we proceed, I would ask my fellow board members if they wish to elect a temporary chair or if they're okay with me proceeding. Okay?
By acclamation.
There you go. Go ahead. Keep going.
That was the last water bill to discuss. I have nothing more unless there's questions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any public comment on this item? Thank you very much. Any boards?
I had one question.
Yes.
There's one on here that you opposed, and you didn't mention it. I just wondered why you guys opposed it.
I can address that. Michael Pawnee for the record. In fact, there's 3 non-water related bills that I wanted to highlight for the board. That's one of them. I'm assuming you're talking about AB 48.
Yes.
AB 48 is a bill that, among other things, would prohibit what's defined or what's referenced as a municipal utility from charging different rates to persons who are within a city and outside of the city. The reason we've got this as a watch opposed is because we cannot tell how they would define what a municipal utility is. And Tumwa's connection fees are based not on political lines, but based on the pipes in the ground. And so there are areas outside of the cities, Sparks and Reno, that have different charges than those inside, not based on their political location, but based on the pipes that are needed to serve that area. So to the extent this may, the term municipal utility could apply to Tumwa, then we might end up having to oppose it. But for right now, we've got that double designation until we can get some clarification on whether it's intended to apply to a joint powers authority like Tumwa or a purely municipal utility.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you for asking that question, follow-up, Mr. Chair. Was it connection or was it rates?
It's rates, different rate or fee. So again, it's pretty broad language.
Okay. Yeah, I think that caught my eye as something that I saw come out last session, prohibiting charging more for sewer outside of municipal boundaries also. And it really is an good land use planning tool. I mean, it really hamstrings cities from costing services, pricing the services to development based upon, the structures, which is the basis for it's not Rule 7, it's our area charges.
Rule 5.
Rule 5. So, I think it some people sat and looked at these and understood what, what regional form goals, whether it's Southern Nevada or Northern Nevada, you're trying to put into place with these differential cost structures, I think you'd come to a conclusion that this is a very good land use planning measures, and it's unfortunate to see that this seems to have a fair amount of traction at state government. So anyway, again, I always go back for me to the precept that Reno carries down to the legislature, which is don't preempt us. The state of Nevada doesn't provide any money to us to provide our sewer services. We're not seeing any funding on Tumwa. It's an enterprise fund rate structure. So let us decide what's our best cost allocations and charges.
There's some case law outside Nevada where cities have charged higher rates to those outside the city in order to kind of force them to annex into the city in order to get the benefit of a lower rate. If I were to guess, that might be what this bill is aimed towards. I'm not aware of any practice in Nevada, but that's a possibility. But like I said, for now, we just have it as a watch, possible oppose until we can get some clarification.
I would like to add also, the bill is sponsored by Clark County, and with the jurisdiction it has related to the city of Las Vegas. And most of the statute that it is amending is specific to, uses the population delimiter of over 700,000. There has been, late in the legislature, a avoidance of using population delimiters to make laws specific to certain areas based on some constitutional issues of equal application of the law. And so whether this bill can stay in that locality without affecting others remains to be seen. I will say that working with the lobbyists from Clark County and working with, we have very good access to them. I'm sure they will hear any of our concerns, and we could probably amend ourselves into the position we want.
The other two bills that I just wanted to highlight for you, one is AB 8. AB 8 would expand the law right now, which allows the governing body of a city to elect to collect delinquent sewer charges on the county property tax bill, to expand that to any utility service charges. We're a joint powers authority, and so we have powers conferred upon us by the cities and the county. So there could be a possibility, if this passes, to provide another mechanism for Tumwa to collect delinquent charges. Whether you do or not is down the road, but that's why we've got that as one we're watching closely for you. We have that as a watch, possible support. And then the last one was AB 71, and this is one that establishes a hybrid retirement program with a defined contribution plan versus a defined benefit plan. The reason I'm highlighting this one, we have it as watch neutral right now, but we're still analyzing the extent to which this may have some impacts on our collective bargaining agreement. So the position may change once we get that data back for you, but for now, we just have a watch neutral.
Any other members have any questions or comments at this time?
Thank you.
I was just wondering, in addition, I heard a little bit of the governor's speech last night. Were there any rollout budgetary? Are you also, I would imagine your scope's looking at the budget rollout too. Are you seeing anything in there water related that we should maybe keep an eye on?
A good question. I watched it's my job. I watched the governors and took notes last night too. My first comment to it is everybody's saying this is going to be the big water session, but neither the governor nor Senator Ford mentioned the word water, so maybe it won't be. And I didn't see anything in the budget in his budget, and I haven't looked at it specifically, that is going to affect water, other than there has been a request for cloud seeding to be included in the budget. A sponsorship, state used to sponsor some cloud seeding, and that didn't occur in the budget. I think it potentially will be added to the called the AB 198 program, to the Board for Financing Water Projects, where you would make set aside already money. There's about $1 million in it right now, where you would make application for money, fees, grant, excuse me, for cloud seeding. But that's probably not within his budget. So the answer is I did not see anything in the budget so far that was water related. Thank you. I'll see you next month.
Thank you. Okay, not seeing any other questions or comments, may I get a motion?
Move to accept the report?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Can I have one clarification? Technically, what we're looking for is a motion to approve the
endorse the
recommendations of the
recommendation.
legislative subcommittee.
Okay, I'll amend my motion if you'd like to
Please.
clarify that we're accepting the report and also accepting the recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're on to item 9, discussion and possible action or approval of staff recommendation for an interim ombudsman and direction of staff to send out an RFQ. Andy?
For the record, Andy Gephardt. I don't think I need that too much. As most of you are aware, I think you're all aware, after your November meeting where we re-upped Joanne Strahla's contract as an ombudsman, she took a serious turn for the worse medically, and she passed away at the end of November. So we lost a very very important person in our customer service family, if you will. And so took a look at what we had to do, how we were going to proceed. We just had the contract renewed. So what we thought we could do is appoint an interim ombudsman to take her place and go out for another RFQ, much as we did in 2008, to see who else is out there and who might be interested in being our ombudsman. What I'm looking for your support today is we have Tammy Fruworth. She has volunteered to be an interim ombudsman. We have extensive knowledge of Tammy. We worked with her at the power company. She has a very strong customer service background, and I think she would serve our customers well in the interim while we did the formal process to find a new ombudsman. And so what I'm seeking direction from you is to allow Tammy to be our interim ombudsman. And do you wish us to go out for an RFQ to get a permanent ombudsman?
Member Smith?
She's only interested in being the interim, is that what it is?
Well, I think she's interested in being a permanent ombudsman. I haven't spoken to her in too much. I know she has an interest in it. But going back to November, when Member Breckus said, when's the last time we'd gone out for an RFQ? When's the last time we had looked at who was available? And so, taking that into account, knowing that we don't have anybody still, I think it would be prudent to go out for an RFQ.
I'll leave it up to you.
Well, I brought it up last time just because I was more curious from Reno's perspective, an ombudsperson work in general. And then I did see the nature, I think $6,000 was spent on Ms. Strahla's contract last year. I mean, it was a very small amount.
$2,700.
$2,700. It was a very small amount. So at that point, I didn't think, to push the issue. While Nevada law allows for sole sourcing of professional services, I think in general it's a good process to, in occasion to RFP, or if you've had someone on for a long time, to go back out. So, but when I saw what small amount of work she did, but then I didn't know till last night that she had passed. So I was, I wasn't thinking this would come up, but I don't think it could hurt. It might be of interest to the board to see what's out there, but it's not that much work.
No.
Either maybe, I don't know, would you put her on an annual contract?
Yeah,
and then the board approve it each year?
We would do the same as we've done with Ms. Strahla if Ms. Fruworth is acceptable to it.
Yeah.
I do have her in the audience. I can turn around and ask her.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just a more honest approach to RFP services, because then, people know that people who are hired go through a vetting process and not just, someone I know or someone I like. So I don't know. That's my take on it.
She has nodded her head that she would be interested, so we're there. We are, for the record, we are very comfortable with her, And her customer service experience, we'd be hard pressed to find anybody locally that had a stronger customer service background. I will say that, so.
Cool.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay, I'll move to, I guess, hire Tammy Creworth as the permanent ombudsman for Tumwater.
Okay,
Second?
second?
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy.
Congratulations.
Yes.
And sincere condolences to this.
Yeah, it was fast and it was a shock, so.
Okay, Madam Clerk, there was no public comment on that item, correct? No. Okay. Item 10, presentation of public open house schedule. Mr. Gephardt and Ms. Olson.
You have in front of you, this is not a surprise. We've been talking about this. This is going out in our bills. But I did want to let you know the formal dates and times of the 4 public comment or workshops that we did schedule for the public. Tuesday, February 21st at the Sparks Police Department. They have a very good training room, great for this type of event. Thursday, February 23rd at the Spanish Springs Library. Wednesday, March 1st at the California Building. And Thursday, March 2nd at South Valley Library. And I'm just asking that you agree and approve, and we'll move forward and go from there.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No.
Thank you very much. Any board members wish to ask any questions or make any comment?
I'll just
Member Dewar.
thank you. Just thank you for, having these workshops. I think they're, as you know, I'm very supportive of them, and I think you were very successful in the last round, which was about the plan. This is about, the rates.
We started this workshop forum, or I guess forum, with the flat rates metered.
Right.
And we found it to be incredibly successful, engaging for anybody that shows up. They are able to get one-on-one
Yeah, the personal attention.
dialogue.
Yeah.
And so we are going to continue that going forward. We found that the customers like it.
Okay.
Well, I would make a motion to adopt the workshop schedule.
I have a motion
Second?
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 11, presentation of the Truckee River Fund activities for calendar year 2016. Mr. Enlow.
Good morning, John Enlow for the record. You have before you a staff report just summarizing the status of the various projects that have been funded over the years by the Truckee River Fund. One of the things that really stands out is how that money is leveraged with other money throughout the community. So this board has contributed over $11 million to date in projects, but over $20 million from other funding sources has come to the table to assist with the implementation of these various projects. I wasn't going to go over everything in detail, but I wanted to point out a few of the key projects. I think it's attachment 3 in your packet. These are just some of the updates of the projects that are currently underway. I think Reno just approved the Highland Canal stormwater improvement project. That's been a long time coming. And I could say that our operations staff, I don't know if you're all aware, but Chalk Bluff continued to treat water during the entire flood event, but they had to go off of the river rather than the Highland Canal because of that storm drainage coming into the canal. It really slobbered it up, so. That's a unique term, huh? One of the other ones that I'm excited about too is Project 147, the Nature Conservancy Project, optimizing restoration investments in the Truckee River watershed. There's actually a kind of a final stakeholder report going on today up in Truckee where they're presenting the results of that project. And they're really zeroing in on where is it most cost effective to spend restoration dollars, what types of activities and so forth. And I think it's interesting, they're going to take it to another level, but dollars, what this study is finding out is dollars spent on restoring old logging roads is actually some of the best money spent towards reducing sedimentation and actually some of the nutrient loading to the Truckee River too. So that's a good one. And then obviously the One Truckee River project that I think you're all familiar with is progressing, and the Truckee River cleanup, that's always a much needed effort along the river. And the one that I like too is the last one, Project 179, the Watershed Education Initiative by Sierra Nevada Journeys. I think that it's really an education effort for our school children, and I think that always is received very positively by everyone. So with that, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No.
Thank you. Any member questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, may I look for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Actually, is this new? This does not need a motion. Thank you. Okay, item 12, General Manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your report, there was a question last time by Member Breckus about the PUCN proceeding, and we have a detail of all that in that General Manager's report. In the end, we did receive a fine of $1,000, and that was related to digging into a marked gas service. And we have gone about the training and completed the training post that incident. In fact, a couple of trainings, I think, Pat, that we completed after that. So that's in there for your information. Also, just wanted to mention about the flood activities that TUMWA had. And the majority of our activities at TUMWA were sandbagging and protecting certain facilities, a lot in the hydro area. Even our corporate building, we sandbag. We did get water in our parking lot, and we had to move Jack's truck because of the water level was coming up to his door jamb on his truck, and he wasn't around. He was at the EOC, so we took a forklift and drug your truck out of harm's way or something like that. And so the majority of our costs, I would say, and effort was preparing and sandbagging and protecting. And we did sustain some damage to a pump vault on West Tough-Acre that flooded not once but twice, and that was due to an overflow of the lake ditch in that area. So we did have customers, about a dozen customers had low pressure for a couple of days or more as a result of that. They were not out of water. We restored service as soon as we could, and then when the second rainstorm hit, we had the same issue, but it's up and running now. We had some other pump vaults that we had to pump out, but none were operating. None of the other ones were operated during this time of year. So that was about the extent of TUMWA's efforts. We did mention the Donner Lake issue that was really touch and go up there. That woody debris had clogged those outlet gates. Like Bill said, the water level of the lake came up 4 feet in one day. We came within probably a couple of inches of flooding the lowest house on the lake, Bill, is that right? And really difficult situation there. It was night, there was 6 feet of snow up there. Trees were falling around Bill and others who were up there trying to clear the debris. We did work with the Tahoe Donner PUD and got the name of a contractor that might be able to help, and he got there after midnight and took him a couple of hours, but he was able to clear the debris just in time, and so that turned out okay, but it was really touch and go. We were set up with the locals to do reverse 911 if necessary and so on. So we had that set up if needed, but that was pretty exciting, a little bit too exciting for all of us that night. So, but we're in good shape there now. And I did send you yesterday details on Tumwa's work in helping restore water service to the Sutcliffe community. They had been out of water for about 6 days because they had a main washed out and it drained their entire system. That system serves about 225 customers out there. And on Friday, we saw NV Warren request for help come out. That is, excuse me, that's a mutual aid network for water and wastewater in Nevada. So, and we also got a request from Washoe County District Health that, you know, could we come out and help? So Pat and Andy actually went out on Friday night, assessed the situation. On Saturday, we rolled several crews out there to help with that situation. They had already found some water hauler trucks from Lyon County that were taking water from Tumwa's system in Spanish Springs, hauling water out there. But they couldn't get up to the tank site, so we built a road. Tumwa crews built a road up to the tank site for them. We provided a pump and a generator to pump that water into the tank. We worked on a road to their treatment plant. We fixed some pipe breaks in the vicinity of the treatment plant. A whole lot of effort there on Saturday, and we were able to, with working with the tribe's consultants and engineers, we were able to restore water service Saturday night. They're still a boil water order because bacteriological samples hadn't been taken yet. But so we're on, yesterday we took we flushed mains and we took the second round of bacterial samples there, and we expect those to pass. Everything looks good. I don't know if Andy's heard anything yet about those, but
Preliminary, they all look good.
so go ahead.
We used our lab because the lab that the colony was using was closed. So we have a state certified lab. And had we waited and had we not offered to use our lab, they would have been taking the first samples today. So they would still be 2 days out. So it really helps. In addition to the crews that were out there, our lab folks helped a lot.
So just want to commend Tumwa crews for, they did an outstanding job working with the other folks to get water service restored. Washoe County District Health was out there too. They were out there almost all weekend too. Wes Rubio, Jim English, and they have no jurisdiction either out there, but they were out there like we were trying to help the situation, and it turned out well, and I'm proud of Tumwa crews and employees for stepping up and making that happen. It's kind of a little bit like a war zone out there, wasn't it, Pat and Andy? Andy became a laborer for about half a day out there as well. So, yeah, Andy got muddy. So anyway, and with that, I think I will turn it over to the Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Brooks.
So does Washoe County declare an emergency and then we get reimbursed for those sort of things, or how does that work?
Yes, I'm not the expert on that, but I believe that Jack might know better. I think the tribe is going to go through the county state system for reimbursement, Jack. But good question. We spent, it looks like we spent probably in labor and materials and equipment, probably around $30,000 on that effort.
Jack Byron with Tumwa. What has happened is, as you refer to, both Washoe County and the state have declared emergencies. They need that in place first, as you well know. Washoe County has a team, a preliminary damage assessment team, that is working with all the entities and collecting damage, cost numbers, and so you can fill it out for a FERC application. Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe is considering they can file themselves to FERC, or they can go through Washoe County. As of yesterday morning, they had not made that decision. So we'll make a cost estimate for them And then if need be, we can also go through the Washoe County process, which we're working on with Pat Nielsen.
Yeah, well, wasn't there last summer another one that failed out in, Rhode Island area, Riverbell?
Yes, that was the River Bell Mobile Home Park.
Did
Yes.
we, how much did we spend on that one?
That was pretty minimal. It was really, Pat and I went out there and did an assessment and, yeah, it was,
Okay.
it was much less than that, right?
Okay, I was just wondering how you
Yeah.
book all these things.
Okay, any other members have any questions or comments? All right.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Mr. Pawnee, I believe you wanted to have a attorney-client meeting. Just a reminder. Thank you.
Yeah, after the adjournment.
Okay, so we are on to item 13, public comment. Madam Clerk,
No public comment.
we have no general public comment. Any board comments or requests for future agenda items?
I have one comment. I'd like just to talk about the flood and how people are innovative and how everybody, the community stepped up to help. Vance, who owns CB Concrete, showed up to our Cottonwood Park sandbagging station with his cement truck full of sand. And when they put the chute down, we were able to fill sandbags one every 6 seconds.
Wow.
And everybody knows how
That's so cool.
backbreaking it is. So I imagine that the entities will probably try to form relationships with all of these concrete companies to help us out, because it was his idea, he donated it, but it was wonderful, and a big shout out to him for helping out like that. It was wonderful.
Creative. Great. Any other board comments? Future agenda items? Seeing none, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. We are adjourned.
Which room, Sonia?